On September 1st, 1939, the Nazi war machine roared to life, targeting Poland. The tranquility of the Polish countryside was shattered by German tanks and the Luftwaffe. Poland, ill-prepared, faced overwhelming odds, but stood ready to defend. The Battle of Krojanty, though a tactical defeat, became a symbol of Polish resistance. The Polish cavalry, with lances and sabres, faced the brutal efficiency of the German blitzkrieg. This mechanized warfare emphasized speed and overwhelming force. The Battle of Krojanty epitomized this clash, pitting courage against mechanized might. The bravery of the Polish soldiers resonated long after the battle. The Battle of Krojanty has become a symbol of Polish resistance. It highlights the sacrifices made by those defending their homeland. The story, though often embellished, continues to capture the imagination. It serves as a reminder of the enduring power of courage and sacrifice. At dawn on September 1st, 1939, the German blitzkrieg unleashed its fury on Poland. The Polish defences, though valiant, were quickly overrun. Panzer divisions and the Luftwaffe dominated, overwhelming Polish forces. Despite their tenacity, the Polish defences crumbled under relentless pressure. The Pomeranian Corridor became a focal point of the German invasion. Polish forces, outnumbered and outgunned, faced a desperate struggle. The Polish cavalry played a crucial role in reconnaissance and delaying the German advance. The flat terrain offered little cover, making Polish soldiers easy targets. The 18th Pomeranian Uhlans prepared to make their stand. Armed with lances, sabres and rifles, they faced the might of the German army. The Battle of Krojanty was a symbolic clash between tradition and modernity. The courage displayed by the Polish soldiers would resonate long after the battle. The Tuchola forest became a battleground in early September 1939. The forest provided cover but also concealed enemy movements. German tanks struggled in the dense undergrowth, slowing their advance. The forest witnessed acts of incredible bravery and unspeakable horrors. Chojnice, a vital transportation hub, became a focal point of the German advance. Polish defenders knew the town's strategic importance and fought to hold it. The Luftwaffe's relentless bombing turned the town into a scene of devastation. The fate of Chojnice and its defenders hung by a thread. Near Krojanty, the 18th Pomeranian Uhlans regrouped. Colonel Kazimierz Mastelets saw an opportunity to strike a blow against the enemy. He ordered a cavalry charge, a daring gamble to disrupt the German advance. The fate of the Uhlans and Chojnice rested on this charge. The Uhlans, with sabres drawn, prepared for a historic charge. 250 men surged forward, their lances lowered. The German infantry, caught off guard, scrambled in disbelief. They were about to learn the courage and tenacity of the Polish soldier. The Uhlans crashed into the German ranks with the force of a tidal wave. The clearing erupted into a maelstrom of violence. The Polish cavalrymen cut a bloody swathe through the German ranks. Their objective was to disrupt and delay, buying precious time. The initial shock of the charge caught the Germans off guard. German armored cars emerged, signaling a shift in the battle. The Uhlans, no match for the firepower, began to withdraw. The forest offered a desperate hope of escape for the surviving Uhlans. Section 4. Retreat under fire. A costly victory. The retreat, like any retreat under fire, was a chaotic scramble for survival. The Polish Uhlans, their horses urged to their limits, galloped through a hail of bullets, the air around them filled with the whine of ricochets and the thud of lead striking flesh. Each man knew that every second could be his last, that death rode beside them, its icy breath on their necks. Their valiant charge had bought precious time for their comrades, but at a terrible cost. The clearing, now littered with the bodies of men and horses, bore silent testament to the ferocity of the fighting. Among those who lay still upon the blood-soaked earth was Commander Eugeniusz Swierskiak, his lifeblood seeping into the ground, his bravery and sacrifice a stark reminder of the human cost of war. Colonel Masterlers, his heart heavy with grief, nevertheless rallied his men, urging them onward toward the relative safety of the forest. They had achieved their objective, delaying the German advance long enough for their comrades to withdraw, but victory, if it could be called that, had come at a terrible price. The 18th Pomeranian Uhlans, their ranks thinned, their spirits battered but unbroken, disappeared into the depths of the Tukula forest, leaving behind a scene of carnage and a legend that would echo through the ages. News of the unexpected Polish cavalry attack, exaggerated in its telling as it passed from unit to unit, spread through the German ranks like wildfire. Even the most seasoned veterans, schooled in the doctrines of blitzkrieg, found themselves looking over their shoulders, their confidence shaken by the ferocity and audacity of the Polish attack. The impact of the Uhlans' charge, though brief and ultimately unsuccessful in halting the German advance, had a psychological effect disproportionate to its military significance. The Germans, expecting a swift and decisive victory, were confronted with an enemy that, though outmatched, was far from defeated. The myth of Polish cavalry charging tanks, while a fabrication of Nazi propaganda, had its roots in the very real fear that the Uhlans had instilled in the hearts of their enemy. Even General Heinz Guderian, a pioneer of armored warfare and a driving force behind the Blitzkrieg, was not immune to the uncertainty that gripped the German ranks in the wake of the Krojanty engagement. He arrived at the scene to find his staff, normally the epitome of military efficiency and confidence, in a state of near panic. Their faces pale, their voices tight with anxiety. The sight of his officers, helmets strapped on, scrambling to prepare an anti-tank gun for a non-existent cavalry attack, gave Guderian pause. He recognized the absurdity of the situation, the way in which fear and uncertainty could distort perceptions, could transform even the most seasoned soldiers into nervous recruits. He quickly asserted his authority, calming his men, dispelling the fog of war with his characteristic blend of charisma and ruthlessness. But the memory of that brief moment of panic, of the way in which the Polish cavalry had for a fleeting instant shaken the confidence of the German war machine, would remain with him. The Polish High Command, though reeling from the speed and ferocity of the German advance, recognized the significance of the 18th Pomeranian Uhlans' sacrifice at Krojanty. Their charge, though a tactical defeat, had bought precious time for other Polish units to regroup and withdraw, delaying the German timetable and demonstrating the enduring spirit of the Polish soldier. On September 2, 1939, General Stanislaw Grzmot-Skotnicki, commander of the Chersk operational group, made his way to the remnants of the 18th Pomeranian Uhlans. He had heard tales of their bravery, of their desperate charge against the German lines, of their sacrifice in the face of overwhelming odds. He had come to pay his respects, to offer what solace he could in the face of such loss. The surviving Uhlans, their faces still bearing the marks of battle, their uniforms torn and stained, stood to attention as their general approached. He addressed them with words of praise and gratitude, acknowledging their bravery, their sacrifice, and their loyalty to Poland. And then, in a gesture that would forever link his name with theirs, he removed his own WWII military medal, Poland's highest military honor, and pinned it to the standard of the 18th Pomeranian Uhlans. It was a moment of profound emotion, a recognition of extraordinary courage in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. The Virtuti Militari, awarded for military valor and for courage in the face of the enemy, had never been bestowed with such poignancy, such a keen awareness of the sacrifices made, the lives lost, the battles yet to come. The Uhlans, their chests swelling with pride, their eyes filled with tears for their fallen comrades, accepted the honor with the solemn dignity of men who had faced death and had emerged, battered but unbroken. The Battle of Krojanty, though only a small engagement in the larger context of the September campaign, would become a defining moment for the 18th Pomeranian Uhlans. They participated in the Battle of the Bzura, a desperate attempt to halt the German advance on Warsaw, where they once again demonstrated their courage and tenacity, inflicting heavy casualties on the enemy before being forced to withdraw. By mid-September, the 18th Pomeranian Uhlans, decimated by weeks of constant combat, their ranks reduced to a fraction of their original strength, were no longer a viable fighting force. They were ordered to disband, their horses surrendered, their weapons laid down. They had fought bravely, had given their all for their country, but their war for the moment was over. The legacy of the 18th Pomeranian Uhlans, however, would live on. Their story passed down through generations of Poles, a symbol of resistance, of courage, of sacrifice in the face of overwhelming odds. The charge at Krojanty, though ultimately a tactical defeat, had become a moral victory, a testament to the enduring spirit of a nation that refused to be broken, even in the face of defeat. The Uhlans, though their regiment was no more, had earned their place in the pantheon of Polish heroes, their names forever etched in the annals of military history. In the fog of war, truth often becomes the first casualty. The Battle of Krojanty, a small but significant clash in the Polish September campaign, would become a prime example of how propaganda and misinformation could twist a narrative, turning a story of courage and sacrifice into a tool for denigrating a defeated enemy. The Germans, eager to portray their conquest of Poland as a triumph of modern military might over outdated tactics, seized upon the image of Polish cavalry charging tanks. This narrative, though demonstrably false, played into pre-existing stereotypes of Polish military incompetence and backwardness. It fed the myth of the German Wehrmacht as an unstoppable force, sweeping aside all opposition with its superior technology and tactics. German war correspondents arriving at the Krojanty battlefield in the wake of the fighting were presented with a carefully stage-managed scene. The bodies of Polish cavalrymen and their horses were displayed prominently alongside German tanks that had not even been present during the actual engagement. Photographs and newsreel footage of this staged scene were disseminated widely, reinforcing the narrative of Polish cavalrymen foolishly charging tanks with lances and sabres. This distorted image of the battle was further amplified by journalists, some eager to appease the Nazi regime, others simply repeating the official line without questioning its veracity. The story, repeated often enough, took on a life of its own, becoming part of the accepted narrative of the Polish campaign. a cautionary tale of a nation clinging to outdated military traditions in the face of 20th century warfare. The myth of Polish cavalry charging tanks at Krojanty has persisted for decades, fueled by a combination of German propaganda, Cold War stereotypes, and a certain romanticism surrounding the image of horse-mounted soldiers facing down tanks and armoured cars. This enduring myth, however, obscures the reality of Polish cavalry tactics and the process of modernization that was already underway within the Polish army in 1939. The Polish cavalry, far from being a relic of a bygone era, was in the process of transitioning from a primarily mounted force to a more modern, mobile force equipped with anti-tank weapons and capable of fighting both on horseback and dismounted. The Polish cavalry brigades of 1939 were trained and equipped to perform a variety of roles, including reconnaissance, screening, raiding and delaying actions against enemy advances. The Polish cavalrymen of 1939 were not the saber-wielding lancers of Napoleonic legend, charging headlong into enemy lines with reckless abandon. They were professional soldiers, trained in the use of modern weaponry, including rifles, machine guns and anti-tank weapons. They understood the limitations of their horses in the face of enemy armor and were prepared to fight dismounted when necessary. The Polish cavalry's role in the September campaign was a complex and often tragic one. They fought with courage and determination against overwhelming odds, their mobility and tactical flexibility proving valuable assets in the face of the German blitzkrieg. Yet they were often committed to battle in piecemeal fashion, their sacrifices overshadowed by the larger narrative of Polish defeat and the enduring myth of the cavalry charge against tanks. Section 3. Debunking the myth of more nuanced reality. The Battle of Krojanty, stripped of the layers of myth and misinformation that have accumulated over the decades, reveals a more nuanced and ultimately more tragic reality. The Polish cavalry charge, far from being a suicidal act of desperation, was a calculated risk, a desperate attempt to buy time for retreating Polish units in the face of a superior enemy force. The 18th Pomeranian Uhlans, armed with lances and sabres, did indeed charge into a German infantry formation caught unaware in a clearing near the village of Krojanty. They inflicted casualties and caused disruption, achieving their initial objective. However, they were soon confronted by German armoured cars, not tanks, and were forced to withdraw under heavy fire. The myth of the Polish cavalry charging tanks at Krojanty appears to have originated from a combination of factors, including the fog of war, the chaos of battle, and the deliberate manipulation of the narrative by German propagandists. The presence of German war correspondents on the battlefield, eager to document the supposed incompetence of the Polish army, undoubtedly contributed to the spread of this falsehood. The reality of the Battle of Krojanty, as with so many battles throughout history, is far more complex and tragic than the simplistic narratives often presented. The Polish cavalrymen who fought and died at Krojanty were not naive fools, charging headlong into the teeth of a modern army. They were brave soldiers fighting for their homeland against overwhelming odds, their sacrifices worthy of remembrance and respect, not ridicule and distortion. Section 1. A continent engulfed, a nation unbroken. The Battle of Krojanty, though but a small skirmish in the grand and terrible tapestry of World War II, serves as a microcosm of the larger conflict, a stark reminder of the human cost of war and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of overwhelming odds. As the Polish September campaign unfolded, the world watched in horror as the Nazi war machine, its gears greased by hatred and fueled by a lust for conquest, swept across the plains of Poland. The Blitzkrieg, a terrifying display of mechanized might, seemed unstoppable, its tanks and planes crushing all resistance in its path. Yet even as the Polish army reeled from the ferocity of the German onslaught, even as cities crumbled under the Luftwaffe's relentless bombardment, the spirit of resistance flickered brightly, fueled by an unyielding love of country and a refusal to surrender to tyranny. The Polish people, their history marked by centuries of struggle against foreign domination, refused to be cowed. The 18th Pomeranian Uhlans, their valiant charge at Krojanty, immortalized in legend, became a symbol of this indomitable spirit. Their sacrifice, their willingness to face down a superior enemy force, resonated deeply within the Polish psyche, a testament to the courage that burned brightly even in the darkest of hours.